Hello everyone, welcome to the LeverX webinar series, a free educational service offered to SAP customers to inform and demonstrate SAP functionality and industry best practices to improve your business performance. Our webinar today is entitled New Simplified Business Workflow for Process Industry Customers. LeverX's integrated process solution, a simplified business user-focused workflow solution, now supports SAP recipe development, specifications, and labels. Today's webinar will focus on these latest innovations for process industry customers. My name is Alan Mendel, Vice President at LeverX, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Before we begin our topic, let me briefly introduce you to LeverX. LeverX helps companies increase the business value by leveraging existing investments in SAP solutions.
So thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, my name is Eric Steida, VP of Services at LeverX, in charge of delivery on projects and also responsible for the product development side. So today we're going to go over a review of what we've done for the recipe development side and how we've integrated IPS into the recipe development solution. So first off, we'll talk a bit about what is IPS. So I'll give you kind of a general overview, how we developed it, how it fits into overall SAP solution, and we'll talk about IPS. Then Dave's going to go into a number of demonstrations directly in the recipe development solution, including looking at how IPS works for the recipes, the specifications, labels, and then we'll also talk a little bit about the engineering record and how IPS integrates there. But this should give you an idea of what is possible with the solution. Okay, Dave, next slide. And then we'll do some questions towards the end. So just a bit of a brief introduction on IPS. And as Alan mentioned, it is our integrated process solution. It's a SAP add-on that simplifies process enablement and workflow building in SAP. So we built this tool over years and years and years of doing workflows for customers. So we developed this tool as an easier way to get processes and workflows enabled in the SAP system. Really the goal there when we created it was to allow business users to create and manage workflows easily. So we really wanted to reduce time and effort which it took to roll out processes and workflow in the SAP system. So reduce the time and effort to develop, reduce time and effort to maintain the processes, and also enable some simplicity and agility through a rapidly deployable solution. And what we mean by that is being able to rapidly build something, adjust it, and then review it, and then change it again if necessary, all without a lot of technical support, let's say. You don't need a workflow ABAP expert to do this. Okay. And so our approach to that is to try to simplify the process enablement and the workflow building down into building block approach. So as you see the chart over on the right, we try to break everything down into process phases, tasks, roles, escalation timing, rules, what our logic is, task decisions, and automation, etc. So we try to create a very building block approach where you can reassemble these things into many different workflow templates and processes as required. And you'll see this, how this all fits together as Dave starts to do some of the demonstrations in the RD side. Okay, Dave, next slide. And I talked a little bit of previously on the previous slide, why did we build IPS? And IPS is really built from the concept that we saw lots of customers that had not implemented workflow, and the basic complaint around implementing workflow is it's a high level of technical expertise to implement workflow. While the standard SAP workflow tool is very powerful, it does require high IT expertise to do it. There's limited capabilities to sprint, rapid prototype, or build proof of concepts. You really have to be going in a direction and then make your investment and go in that direction. Workflow comes with many out-of-the-box capabilities, but it usually requires some amount of coding, so we wanted to reduce coding on our side to make it, you don't need to code anything to build the workflow. And development deployment times on the traditional workflow can be anywhere from weeks to months. So we've had anything from like 3 to 4 weeks to roll out a simple process to up to 6 months to kind of build out something that would go end to end.
Okay. So, all right. So, you know, as Eric said, we have the capability of working with many of the recipe development objects directly with our integrated process solution tool. You know, so what this gives you is flexibility on how you want to approach things. You know, one of my thoughts is early on in recipe development, you're creating a lot of recipes, and you might not have a real formal process that you might want to have, like when you're going to release a recipe to full production. So you might have a smaller, more ad hoc type approach because you're doing a lot of recipes. You don't want to be tied down at a recipe, at a label, or a spec to a very formal process. So this is where the IPS workflow can work directly on that object to give you that greater amount of flexibility. So let's take, what I'm going to start out here is I'm in the SAP inbox. So this is SAP PLM 7 view. For if some of the people out there have SAP PLM 7 loaded, you're not used to seeing the Business Workflow Center here. We've just enabled it for this screen so you can see the SAP inbox with the overall structure we have over here of the traditional SAP PLM recipe development user interface with recipes, building blocks, specs, etc. So over here in my inbox, I'm going to go, and I've already started a workflow, and it's just really at the very earliest stage. So you can see I've selected it. You have all the very traditional SAP inbox information, where you have, you know, what's the object you're working on, what is your recipe description, what is your task description. Please check the associated recipe. And, you know, once again, all these descriptions are very unique to the end user, and you can put in whatever information you need to at those levels. So, you know, any of these descriptions you see or titles you see, you know, it's stuff that we've made up to, you know, create a demo for you. So I simply have to come up here and select execute. Hopefully my system did not go to sleep. So what the system's now going to do is going to open up the recipe. And so that's what we're seeing here. And we can see the recipe opens up, and we scroll up to the top. So here you can see your standard, you know, here's our recipe, tofu roll snack recipe. So I made a tofu tuna roll snack recipe that you can buy at the 812 store.